What is up, guys? Lone Hawk here today, and welcome to episode 1 of a new series I am doing called Overwatch University. In this series, we're going to go over everything, literally everything. I'm going to start with the basics, and then we're going to move all the way through every single thing you need to know in Overwatch. If you're a new player, this can help you get to high levels of Diamond and Master even, and if you're not a new player, later videos in the series will be able to help you as well. Be patient with this series, guys, because the beginning may seem a little slow, but I promise we're going to pick up the pace, and any of you that are in Platinum, Gold, or even lower-ish Diamond will be able to benefit from this series. This series can and will give you the tools you need to improve at Overwatch and get to that Master level, maybe even, top 500 one day, if you put enough time into it. We're going to start off today's video with the settings of Overwatch because you really need to make sure you have these right. That way you're not handicapping yourself for no reason. Most of these will be PC only because you can't change as many settings on console. However, some of them will be for console players, so you guys should stay tuned too. First, let's talk about your video options on PC mainly. Your display mode should be full screen. I guess some people like borderless windowed, some people like windowed. Regardless, if you want maximum performance and minimal distractions, you should be playing at full screen at all times. For resolution, you really want to pick the one that is your monitor's resolution. If you can't play on this due to a weaker graphics card, lower it down to 720p maybe, but I would never go below 720p. You'll just be missing out on too much visual fidelity. Your aspect ratio should always be on 16:9. If you have a 16:10 monitor, don't use it. You can use the monitor, but make sure you're using 16:9 because it gives you the widest field of view, which if you go into your settings, you should have your field of view set to its maximum, 103. Now, for you console users and everybody who plays the game, you're going to want these 3 next settings enabled at all times. Enable the kill feed for one, that way you know who is dying and who is getting killed at all times. Enable the kill cam, and we'll talk about kill cam in a later episode, but make sure your kill cam is enabled, and make sure allied health bars are turned on at all times. Doesn't matter really if you're playing a hero that has some sort of healing or shielding capability, you really just want allied health bars on at all times. Now let's move on to your equipment, because once again, you can be handicapping yourself for no reason. We're going to start with PC equipment first. If you're a console user and you want to skip this, look for the timestamp on screen right now, and skip to that section to see what equipment you should be using. Back to you PC guys though, let's start off with the first piece of equipment, possibly the most important piece of equipment you have, and that is your mouse. Before we talk about which mice are good, let's just get one thing out of the way right now. Make sure you have mouse acceleration turned off, all the way, gone. If you don't know how to do that, there are many other guides on that. Just make sure your mouse acceleration is turned off, and if you're in Windows, make sure the enhanced pointer precision box that is in your mouse settings screen is unchecked, because that does extra calculations, adds some input lag, and also can mess with your aim. Although very minimally, it still does mess with your aim. Now let's talk about which mice are good and which ones you should and should not be using. The good thing about mice is relative to other computer parts, they're not too expensive to get a good one. They may be between $60 and $80, which you may think is crazy for a mouse, but it is well worth your investment if you really want to get good at Overwatch, or really any shooter game there is. There are 4 brands of mice I recommend. Any others are kinda and I really wouldn't recommend them, with some exceptions. And the 4 brands I recommend are Razer, Zowie, SteelSeries, and Logitech. Razer makes their Death Adder, which is the shooter mouse they have that is very lightweight with a pretty good sensor on it and a lot of pro players like to use. SteelSeries has their Rival and their Sensei. The Rival is more common for FPSs, but some people like the Sensei. Logitech has their G303, G502, and a bunch of other G somethings. I don't know the specifics, but they're all good mice, and you can't really go wrong with any of these brands. There are some other brands. I know Thermaltake makes mice. I know there's like this one mouse called the Rat. However, even if they look cool or they claim they're great, or they're maybe a cheap $15 mouse from Amazon that looks insanely cool, you're not going to get as much value out of these mice as you will the mice that I have recommended. The mice that I recommended, those 4 brands, headphones, you're really going to get a good bang for your buck. They'll all be durable, they'll have very good sensors on them, you won't notice many problems with them, and generally they're built for gamers. They'll be ergonomic, they'll fit in your hand well, which is a huge thing for aim. It helps you aim a lot if you like the feel of your mouse. They won't mess up, and they're just going to be good quality products in general, so you won't be handicapping yourself. Before we move on to your keyboard, let's talk a little bit about mouse pads. And there's a lot of very different opinions on mouse pads. There isn't a very set rule for mouse pads like there are kind of with mice. Like I said, those 4 brands make the best of. Mouse pads are a little bit different. They're really kind of user preference. But there is one thing that should remain consistent no matter which mouse pad you get. It needs to be big, all right? Big mouse pads are the best mouse pads because you will have more room to aim, and you can adjust your sensitivity to allow yourself to be more precise. You can lower your sensitivity with a bigger mouse pad, and it will make you a better player, usually in the long run. You can go with a cloth mouse pad, a hard mouse pad, or some weird sort of hybrid mouse pad, but it really doesn't matter too much. It's all based on personal preference. Most people use cloth ones. I use a cloth one. I actually use a Razer one, but some other ones you can use I know that are good. SteelSeries makes some great mouse pads. Rocket makes great mouse pads. Zowie makes great mouse pads, and so does Razer. So if you go with really any of those 4 brands, you will not be going wrong. One quick note though is that you don't need these things to be better. They will just help you get better. They won't make you a master to your player on your own, and not having them won't keep you from being a master player unless you have some seriously bad equipment. These do cost money and they will be expensive, and I don't expect everyone to buy all of these or be able to afford all of these. These are just some things that I think will help you if you have the money for them. Now let's talk about your keyboard. This is going to be a relief to some of you because I'm here to say your keyboard doesn't matter nearly as much as some people make it out to be. You don't need a mechanical keyboard. You do not need a gaming keyboard. Pretty much any keyboard will do as long as it feels good to you. Some things that I recommend and don't recommend. I like mechanical keyboards, so I like Cherry MX blue switches, Cherry MX red switches, and all of the Razer switches. They all feel very good to me. Another thing I would say is don't really get a gaming keyboard unless it's a mechanical one. Like Razer makes a rubber dome keyboard that has lights on it, but it's really no different than a regular keyboard. If you're not going to get a mechanical keyboard, just get a $20 one, $10 one from the store. They're all pretty much the same. Up next, we have your headset. And lucky for you guys, once again, just like the keyboard, I'm here to tell you your headset doesn't matter nearly as much as some people say. But wait, Lone Hawk, I need to be able to hear footsteps. I need to know. Yes, you can do that with many headsets. You don't need a top-of-the-line headset to be able to hear footsteps. However, you do need a headset. Some things I recommend that I think are good. Earbuds work just fine. Make sure you're not using speakers, though. That's one huge thing. Never use speakers if you want to play competitively. Another thing I'd like to note is don't go for gaming headsets. Unless you really need the microphone, you can buy separate microphones, by the way. Unless you really need a headset with a microphone, gaming headsets are usually a ripoff. They cost more and their quality is usually not as good as an actual brand that makes headsets. Sony makes good headsets. Audio-Technica makes great headsets if you can afford them. I don't recommend Razer headsets. Don't tell them I said that because they sponsor me, but I have had not the best experience with Razer headsets. They don't sound too good. I just like staying away from gaming headsets. I think Turtle Beaches are pretty bad for the price. Another thing I'd like to say. So just go with a standard music listening headset. Don't tailor it to gaming. And if you still need the mic, they sell little mics you can clip onto your shirt or even clip onto your headset on Amazon for like $10. Nothing expensive, and you're going to sound fine in game. Up last, we're going to talk about your monitor. And if you're wondering why we haven't talked about what's inside your computer, that's because that's a whole nother story. I can make a whole video about what you should be putting in your computer to play games. That is on you. For your monitor, though, I will help you by saying a few things. For one, you want a monitor with under 2 milliseconds response time. This is a statistic on pretty much every monitor you can see whenever you just click on it on whatever site you're buying it from, and under 2 milliseconds is best. So 2 milliseconds, or more commonly, they come in a 1 millisecond variety. That's basically the minimum amount of input lag you can have on a monitor. Also, I recommend going with a 144 Hz monitor or a 120 Hz depending on the brand. These are expensive, I won't lie, so they're not required by any means, but they will allow you to aim more precisely. Not a lot, they really just raise the skill ceiling of your aiming. They unlock your potential to aim a little bit better, and the game feels very smooth. If you don't have a 144 Hz monitor, but you're still looking for something good for gaming, try not to get an IPS monitor. IPS monitors controllers have very vibrant colors and they look pretty good color-wise, but their refresh rates are often stuck at 60. You can't really overclock them at all, and they may have a little bit more input lag than a standard TN panel. That's what most monitors use. I guess I'll touch on chairs and equipment and all that stuff very briefly. You don't need a gaming chair. You don't need any crazy sort of, what are they called? DX Racer chairs. Just find a chair that's comfortable to you. Find a desk that is a good height that matches your chair, and you don't really need the gaming versions of all those things. They are not as useful as you may think. One thing I do recommend, however, and I should have probably brought this up during the mouse section, is look into getting a mouse bungee. What a mouse bungee does is makes it so basically your wired mice feel wireless because they prevent any sort of sliding or dragging or your mouse cable being hooked on anything. You may think they're stupid, you may think they're dumb. They shouldn't be too expensive, like $20 if you can afford it, or you can just use a piece of tape. Basically, you just don't want your cable drooping off to the side or being pulled on by anything. You want the cable to be free so it doesn't pull along anything. And that pretty much concludes the PC section of what you should be using equipment-wise to maximize your potential in Overwatch. If you want to see what the console users should be using, what I recommend, keep listening. If you're a PC gamer and that's all you care about, check the timestamp on screen to skip to the end of the video where I kind of wrap things up. Welcome, console gamers. Now that I'm done with my extensive talk on PC gamers, let's talk about your equipment, your setup, and what you should be doing to stop limiting yourself in Overwatch. You're all probably wondering, what is my opinion on controllers? What are the best controllers? How can I improve my Overwatch by spending money on a new controller? Well, I'm here to tell you the default controller that comes with your system is good. It's actually probably one of the better ones. It's much better than the ones they sell at Walmart, like the Afterglow controllers or the cheap controllers that have very rigid analog sticks. If you have a normal controller that came with your Xbox or PS4, you're probably good to go. However, there are some alternatives that I can recommend from experience that may help you a little bit, although they are very expensive, so don't think they're necessary by any means. The first alternate controller/controller modification you can make is Xbox only. The rest are for both Xbox and PS4, and this controller is simply the Xbox Elite controller. If you don't know what this is, Xbox has a premium controller that has some extra functionality that lots of people online seem to like. Now, I can't say from personal experience that this controller is better, but through research, I've read that a lot of people really like their Xbox Elite controllers, and the best part about them is they're made by Microsoft. You don't have to trust some weird brand making a funky controller that may or may not work or be legal in tournaments if you play it there. The Xbox Elite controller is kind of a solid choice if you just want a direct upgrade without too much risk. The rest of the things that will help you, in my opinion, are all PS4 and Xbox One both. The first one is the most expensive one, then the other two are actually very reasonably priced, and you can all afford them and they'll probably help you, but we'll go over those last. The first suggestion I have, if you really have deep pockets and you have the money, SCUF controllers, if you don't know what they are great custom-made controllers for both PS4 and Xbox One. No, I'm not sponsored by them, unfortunately. I was offered to be, but I turned them down. They are just great controllers. You cannot go wrong with a SCUF controller. It has extra paddles built into the back, extra grip built into it, longer thumbsticks for extra precision, and it's pretty much the gamer's controller. However, like I said, they are extremely expensive. Do not think by any means they're necessary. These are only there if you have the money to blow. If you don't have this money to blow, but you want the same effect as one of these nice controllers, there are two things you can do to your controller that will make you better, or hopefully make you better at the game. The first suggestion I have are these things called squid grips. Squid grips are these things you can buy online, and I actually think they sell them in stores now at like GameStop, where these little pads you stick to your controller that give you an extra grip to hold on to. That way you can hold your controller more loosely. You may think, well, that's just stupid. Why would I pay money to be able to hold my controller more loosely or more effectively? Well, when you're gripping a controller very tight and it's getting sweaty and you have to really hold on to it tight to play, your aim isn't going to be as good because you're putting a lot of stress and strain on your hands. So adding these nice padded grips to your controller for pretty cheap, like $20 or less, is going to be pretty nice, and I recommend them. They work both on Xbox One and PS4. My final controller-related suggestion are these things called control freaks. What control freaks are thumbstick extenders. They make your thumbstick longer, that way you can make more precise aim and movement adjustments. If you think this is just superstition or it doesn't really work, it actually does. By lengthening your thumbstick, you have to move your thumbstick a little bit more to achieve the same angle you would have before, meaning you have more precision. It basically lowers your sensitivity in a sense if you were playing on PC, but it doesn't actually. It's really weird. It's hard to explain, but if you make the switch, I promise you it'll help you in the long run. It may feel weird at first. In fact, I know it will feel weird at first, but it does give you a little bit more precision, and it can make you a much better player, especially if you play very aim-heavy heroes, McCree, Widowmaker, and the likes. Up next, we're going to talk about the TV you play on when you're playing with a console. The thing about TVs is that many people don't realize is they're not all alike, and they're not all like gaming monitors. Some TVs have extremely high input delays, meaning they're going to be fine on TV because you don't see input delay, but when you're playing a video game on them, the time it takes for you to move a thumbstick and actually see that move on screen could be like 10 to 20 or even like 50 milliseconds. Really large amounts of time you may not think you'd notice, but you really will notice. So here's what I recommend for gaming on. Try to find a TV with the lowest response time possible. Under 5 milliseconds is okay. Under 2 milliseconds is optimal. That's what I recommended for PC gamers. My best suggestion though, actually I think the best way to play on console is at a desk with a gaming monitor, like a PC monitor hooked up to your console. First of all, when you're closer to a smaller monitor, you get a better view of what's going on than if you're sitting on a couch kind of far away from a TV. And your posture is likely to be better too and more consistent, which means you'll be a better player, a more consistent player overall. So my suggestion is to try to play on a gaming monitor. If that's not possible, try to play on a TV with the lowest response time possible. And if that's not possible, just play on whatever TV you have. You don't need to spend money to get better. I'm just trying to provide you guys with the tools to make you the best you can be if it is in your budget. There's one thing I'm going to talk about for console users that I didn't talk about with PC users, and that's your posture. Your posture is really important when you play a console game. And I don't mean sit up straight, do this, make sure your back is not bent over. I'm not trying to bust your balls like that. I'm just here to say whatever posture you sit in, however you like to play the game, always play the game that way. If you're constantly changing the way you sit, if you're constantly sitting or laying down or doing different things when you play the game, it's going to really be hard to generate muscle memory. It's going to be harder for your body to get used to you playing Overwatch. So keeping things consistent is going to be the best for you. That will conclude our PC and console discussion for your equipment and setup for Overwatch. This video, I realize now, really sounds like you need to spend money to be good at the game, when that's not the reality at all. I'm really just trying to help you guys understand what the best equipment is, what the best setups are, that way you can be better at the game. I'm not trying to say you need to spend money to get better. I'm just trying to provide you with this information, that way if something does come into your budget and you really want to use it to improve your game, you now know what you can use. You don't need to spend money, but these things will help you. Stay tuned for episode 2, which we're going to go into the basics of Overwatch a lot more on. We're going to talk about picking your role and understanding the game on a very basic level. For you advanced players, just stay tuned. This series will get more advanced as we go along, but we have to start somewhere. I really want this series to be fully comprehensive, covering everything you need to know about Overwatch, so we have to start here. Be sure to follow me on Twitter if you haven't already, at LoneHawk. That's a 0, not no. The other YouTubers make fun of me. They think I'm a joke. I don't have like any Twitter followers. They're over there with like 30,000 and I've got like 3,000. Like, come on guys, do you not have Twitter accounts? Make some Twitter accounts. Help me out here. But regardless, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It helps me out a lot, and I will see you guys all later. LoneHawk out.